Hello there, thanks for joining us. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to go about securing your Canadian citizenship. So if you are already a Canadian permanent resident and you're thinking about becoming a citizen, we will outline the requirements that are needed in order for you to successfully apply to become a Canadian citizen. So please don't go away, stay with us, and as always, do remember to hit the subscribe button and to check us out on our website at go.gooselaw.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My name is Donovan Francis and I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer, and I help skilled workers who are already inside Canada and those who are outside Canada. I help them to become Canadian permanent residents without having to deal with all of the complicated legal forms that are part of that process. If you are already a permanent resident and you are thinking of applying to become a Canadian citizen, then there are some things that you will need to know. Generally speaking, Canadian permanent residents enjoy similar rights to Canadian citizens, but there are some exceptions. Some of those exceptions include the fact that Canadian permanent residents are not able to vote while Canadian citizens can. Canadian permanent residents also may not hold public office, unlike Canadian citizens. And also, there is what's called a residency requirement, which means that Canadian permanent residents must apply to get their permanent residency card renewed. And when applying, they must show that they have been inside Canada for at least 2 years in the last 5-year period. So those are some of the requirements for that must be met by Canadian permanent residents. And as a result of that, the natural step after becoming a permanent resident is to become a Canadian citizen, which would then entitle you to full benefits, well, at least to all the benefits that are enjoyed by Canadian citizens. And so in this video, we're going to be walking you through exactly what you'll need to do in order to successfully apply for your Canadian citizenship and to become a Canadian citizen. So again, importantly, you must be a Canadian permanent resident. All right. And that means that you must not be under any kind of immigration review. Your status as a Canadian permanent resident must not be currently under review by the Canadian authorities. It also means that you must have met the residency requirement, for instance, for you to be that requires you to be a Canadian permanent resident. In fact, if you are wanting to apply for your Canadian citizenship, not only must you have met the residency requirement, but you also must show that you would have been in Canada for at least 3 years during the preceding 5-year period. So that's one of the requirements. So you must show in your citizenship application that you've been inside Canada for 1,095 days, which is the equivalent to 3 years. And this must have been during the 5-year period prior to your applying for citizenship. So that's going to be very important. And that's an absolute requirement. And just from some of the applications that we've done in the past, this sometimes can be one of the more tricky areas, especially in situations where permanent residents have reasons to be outside of Canada. And we've seen situations where the permanent resident had been outside Canada for maybe they were studying, or maybe they had family in the States, but they were constantly outside Canada for multiple periods of time, multiple days, and it became important for us to establish that at a minimum they had met this 1,095 days requirement. And one of the things that we've had to do in some instances is to apply for what's called an ATIP, an access to information report that shows what at least the dates are on which they departed Canada, or rather the dates in which they re-entered Canada And in some situations, we may also have to try to find, to use the dates on their passport, entry stamps, and so on, to determine how long they've been outside of Canada and whether or not this requirement has been met. And this is something that we've supported clients in the past with, and they've been happy. But at the end of the day, this isn't going to be always a very straightforward application, especially in situations where the permanent resident had reason to be outside of Canada. But so that's a requirement that has to be met. The 1,095-day requirement, you need to show things like that you've been filing your income taxes. That's a general requirement. Another requirement that must be met by persons who fall between the ages of 18 and 54 years is a language skills requirement. And that is you have to pass a language test, right? Whether it be in English or in French, you need to pass it at a level 4 or higher. Okay, so that's a requirement. But again, if you are under 18 years old, or if you're over 54, if you're 55 and upwards, you do not need to do this language test. Neither will you need to do the what's called the rights and responsibilities and knowledge test that others have to do if you're over 54 years old, or if you are under 18. Persons between the ages of 18 and 54, however, must do this test. And it's not an overly complicated test. It's pretty straightforward. It touches on just general information about Canada's history, geography, laws, symbols, and so on and so forth. But that's a test that you will need to take and pass. And generally speaking, you get three shots at it. And after the third failed attempt, you may have to reapply rather for your Canadian citizenship. But generally speaking, that is not usually a hindrance for persons who are wanting to apply for the Canadian citizenship. One other important thing to bear in mind is the citizenship interview. Now, not everybody has to do the interview, but again, if you're between the ages of 18 and 54 years old, then there's no escape for you. You are going to have to do both the interview and the language test, as well as the knowledge test. If you are over 55, you still have to do the interview. But in these kinds of, in your case rather, you do not have to do neither the language nor the knowledge test. But again, you will have to do the interview. Generally speaking, minors, persons under the age of 18, don't typically have to do the interview except for certain kinds of situations, this being one of them. If you're between 14 and 17 and you're without a Canadian parent, or a parent applying at the same time. All right, but generally speaking, that's going to be who will be required to do the interview. And typically the interview happens at the point in time when you're getting your test results back. That's typically when the interview happens. And then once you've you've completed your interview and you've passed the test, assuming you had to do the test, then you are going to be all set and ready to be invited to participate in your citizenship ceremony, at which point you will then officially become a Canadian citizen. So I hope you found value from this video, and as always, do remember to hit the subscribe button and to check us out on our website at go.gooselaw.com.